Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question. What if the battle you're fighting today has already been won? What if the struggle that's been keeping you awake at night has a resolution waiting on the other side of your faith? You see, the greatest lie of the enemy is that you are alone, stranded, and unprepared. But the truth is, God has already prepared your victory. The Bible declares in 2 Chronicles 20:17, you will not need to fight this battle. Stand firm, hold your position, and see the salvation of the Lord on your behalf. This is not just ancient text. This is divine instruction for your life right now. God is saying, the battle is mine, but I need you to rise up and take your position. You see, God is not a reactive God. He is proactive. He doesn't start working when the enemy attacks. He finishes the work before the enemy even shows up. When Jesus said on the cross, it is finished, he wasn't just talking about salvation. He was talking about every victory you would ever. But here's the key. Victory requires action. Faith without works is dead. Some of you are waiting for the miracle, but God is waiting for you to rise up and step into the miracle he has already prepared. Let me tell you, there's no victory in sitting down. There's no breakthrough in complacency. When God told the Israelites to march around Jericho, their obedience activated the walls to fall. Your miracle might be one act of obedience away. And I need you to hear this. Every test you face is setting the stage for God's glory to be revealed in your life. The giants in your path are not there to destroy you. They are there to elevate you. When David faced Goliath, the victory was already prepared. It wasn't about the stone or the sling. It was about God's power manifesting through David. So today I challenge you. Stand up, take your position, and witness the miracle. Don't stop watching this until you hear every word God has for you. Because this might be the moment your perspective shifts, your faith ignites, and your miracle begins to unfold. This is not the time to sit in fear or doubt. This is the time to rise up because your victory is prepared. Rise up because God is faithful. Rise up because the battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. Let's go deeper together and see how God transforms your battles into testimonies of triumph. Your life is not a random sequence of events. It is a masterpiece, intricately crafted by the Creator himself. From the very beginning, God has had a purpose for you, a plan that is both intentional and victorious. You are not wandering aimlessly through life. You are walking a path that God has carefully laid out, a path that leads to triumph. Think about this. Before you were even born, God already knew every challenge you would face, every obstacle that would stand in your way, and he made sure the provision for victory was set in place. The word reminds us in Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. This isn't a vague promise. It is a specific declaration over your life. Your battles may feel overwhelming, your circumstances may seem insurmountable, but God has already accounted for every detail. He has mapped out the way forward, prepared the resources, and ensured that his power is available to carry you through. What you must understand is this: God's preparation goes far beyond human comprehension. Long before David ever stood before Goliath, God had been training him in the fields as a shepherd, equipping him with the courage, skill, and faith he would need to face the giant. Similarly, every moment of your life, the victories and even the struggles, has been a part of God's divine preparation for the purpose he has called you to fulfill. This means that no setback, no delay, and no opposition can cancel what God has prepared for you. The victory is already yours, not because of your own strength or ability, but because of the one who goes before you. You are not fighting to win. You are fighting from a position of victory that has already been secured. God's plans are deliberate. His timing is perfect, and his power is limitless. Trust in this truth. You are walking in the steps of a victory that was prepared for you long before the battle ever began. You are not fighting to win. You are fighting from a position of victory that has already been secured by God. This is the profound truth many fail to grasp in the midst of their struggles. Too often, we exhaust ourselves trying to achieve something that God has already accomplished. But the reality is, the moment God spoke over your life, the outcome was sealed. Victory is not something you earn. It's something you step into. Consider this. When the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea, they faced an impossible situation. An enemy behind them, a sea in front of them. To the natural eye, defeat was inevitable, but God didn't tell them to fight their way out. He simply commanded Moses to stretch out his staff. The victory was already prepared. All they had to do was move forward in obedience and faith. The sea parted not because of their might, but because of God's plan that had been in place long before Pharaoh's army pursued them. In the same way, your battles are not yours to win by your own strength. God has already secured the outcome. Your responsibility is not to figure out how it will happen, but to trust in the one who has declared it is finished. The cross is the ultimate proof of this truth. Jesus didn't just die for your salvation. He died to make sure that every battle you face has a victorious ending. When you truly grasp this, you no longer approach life with fear or anxiety. Instead, you walk with confidence, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity for God's victory to be revealed. This is why the Bible reminds us, if God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. Victory is not just a destination, it is your inheritance, prepared and guaranteed by the one who holds all power in his hands. Faith is the key that unlocks the victory God has already prepared for you. Without faith, it is impossible to fully access the plans and promises of God. The enemy knows this, which is why he works tirelessly to plant seeds of doubt in your heart. But let me remind you, faith is not about what you see with your physical eyes. It is about trusting in what God has spoken. Think of Joshua and the Israelites standing before the massive walls of Jericho. To human reasoning, those walls were impenetrable. No weapons, no army, no human strategy could bring them down. But God didn't ask them to fight. He asked them to have faith. He instructed them to march around the city, praising him in obedience, even though the walls remained standing. Their faith was tested day after day as they circled the city without seeing any physical evidence of victory. Yet on the seventh day, their faith activated God's power and the walls came crashing down. Your faith works the same way. It may not make sense to others. It may seem foolish to trust in promises that haven't yet materialized. But faith connects you to the supernatural. It allows you to access the victory that is already prepared, waiting for you to believe it into existence. Hebrews 11:01 reminds us, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith doesn't wait for proof, it creates proof. Every step of faith you take declares to heaven and earth that you trust in God's sovereignty. It is an act of partnership with him, saying, Lord, I believe you have already won this battle, and I am stepping forward in obedience. Faith is not passive, it requires action. It requires you to rise up, declare his promises, and walk boldly into the miracle he has set before you. Let your faith rise today and watch as it brings down every wall, silences every doubt, and reveals the victory that has been waiting for you all along. Obedience is the bridge between God's promise and your victory. It's not enough to hear what God has spoken, you must act on it. Too often we hesitate, waiting for everything to make sense or for the path to become clear. But God doesn't always show us the full picture. He simply asks us to trust him step by step. Your obedience activates his power and sets the stage for his miracles. Look at the story of Naaman, the commander who sought healing from leprosy. When the prophet Elisha told him to dip 7 times in the Jordan River, it didn't make any logical sense. The Jordan was muddy and Naaman had access to cleaner rivers. Yet his healing didn't depend on the quality of the water. It depended on his obedience to God's instruction. It wasn't until he humbled himself and followed through that his skin was restored, completely healed. In the same way, God's instructions for your life might not always align with your understanding or expectations. Sometimes he asks you to forgive someone who wronged you, even when your heart resists. Sometimes he calls you to give sacrificially, even when your resources are limited. Other times he might lead you to take a step into the unknown without revealing what's ahead. These moments of obedience are tests of faith, and they often precede the greatest breakthroughs in your life. Deuteronomy 28:01 reminds us, if you fully obey the Lord your God and carefully follow all his commands, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations on earth. Your obedience is not just about following rules. It is about aligning yourself with God's will, positioning yourself to receive his blessings. The victory is already prepared, but your obedience is the key that unlocks the door. Trust his voice, follow his lead, and watch as he brings you into the promises he has ordained for your life. Your perspective shapes your experience of victory. How you see your circumstances determines how you respond to them. While challenges and obstacles may appear overwhelming, God calls you to see through the lens of his promise, not the limitations of your situation. It's not about denying the reality of your struggles. It's about recognizing that God's power is greater than anything you face. Think of the 12 spies sent to scout the promised land. 10 of them returned with a report of fear, focusing on the giants in the land and declaring, "We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." Numbers 13:33. But Joshua and Caleb saw the same land through a different perspective. They didn't deny the giants were there, but they boldly declared, because they viewed the situation through the promise of God, not their own abilities. This shift in perspective is critical for your life. When you face financial struggles, do you see lack or do you see an opportunity for God to provide? When relationships break down, do you see defeat or do you see a chance for God to restore? When obstacles rise, do you see impossibility or do you see the stage being set for a miracle? God wants you to stop focusing on the size of the problem and start focusing on the size of his power. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." God's perspective is far above what we can comprehend. And when we align our vision with his, we begin to see victory in every situation. Choose today to see your life not as a series of obstacles, but as a journey toward the fulfillment of God's promises. When you change your perspective, you change your experience, and you position yourself to witness the miraculous victory God has already prepared. The power of your words plays a significant role in manifesting the victory God has already prepared for you. What you speak reflects what you believe, and what you believe determines the atmosphere around your life. The Bible says in Proverbs 18:21, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." This means your words can either align with God's promises or work against them. Consider the story of David before he faced Goliath. While the entire Israelite army trembled in fear, David spoke words of faith and boldness. He declared to the giant, "You come against me with sword and spear, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." 1 Samuel 17:45. David's victory was not only in his actions, but in the faithful words he spoke. His declaration aligned with God's power, and as a result, the battle was won before it even began. In your life, what are you declaring over your challenges? Are your words filled with doubt, fear, and negativity, or are they filled with faith, hope, and the promises of God? When you speak words like, "I can't," "It's impossible," or "I'll never overcome this," you are unknowingly reinforcing the obstacles before you. But when you declare, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me," Philippians 4:13, or "No weapon formed against me shall prosper," Isaiah 54:17, you are inviting God's power to manifest in your situation. Your words carry spiritual weight. They have the ability to open doors to the miraculous or to shut them. When you declare God's promises, you activate his plans in your life. Speak life over your circumstances, even when the evidence around you seems contrary. Let your words reflect the victory God has already secured for you. Declare his truth boldly and watch as your faith-filled speech transforms your reality and leads you to experience the miracle he has prepared. Patience is a crucial component in witnessing the victory that God has already prepared for you. In our fast-paced, instant gratification world, it's easy to become discouraged when things don't happen on our timeline. But God's timing is perfect, and his plans unfold at the precise moment he has ordained. Your victory is secured, but the process of receiving it often requires a period of waiting. testing, and preparation. Consider the story of Abraham. God promised him that he would be the father of many nations, yet it took many years for that promise to come to fruition. At times, Abraham and Sarah grew impatient, even trying to take matters into their own hands by attempting to fulfill God's promise in their own way. However, it wasn't until they waited on God's timing that Isaac, the son of promise, was born. In that waiting period, God was not just preparing Isaac, he was preparing Abraham and Sarah's hearts to receive the fulfillment of his promise. Likewise, in your life, God is working behind the scenes even when you can't see the results. James 5, 7, and 8 encourages us to be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. The farmer trusts that the harvest is coming, even though he doesn't see the fruit immediately. Similarly, you must trust that the victory God has promised is on its way, even when it seems delayed. Patience doesn't mean passive waiting. It means active trust in God's faithfulness. It's knowing that while you wait, he is working on your behalf, orchestrating circumstances and preparing you for what's to come. It's during these times of waiting that your character is shaped, your faith is strengthened, and your dependency on God is deepened. Trust that God's victory is worth the wait, and that the miracle he has prepared for you will come in his perfect timing. Gratitude is a powerful attitude that positions you to fully receive the victory God has already prepared for you. When you cultivate a heart of gratitude, you shift your focus from what's lacking or what's difficult to what God has already done and is about to do in your life. Gratitude opens the door for God to move even more powerfully as it acknowledges his goodness and faithfulness in the midst of your circumstances. The story of the 10 lepers in Luke 17 is a perfect example of how gratitude impacts the miraculous. Jesus healed 10 men who were suffering from leprosy, but only one of them returned to give thanks. Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9?" Luke 17:17. The one who returned to give thanks didn't just receive physical healing, he received a deeper blessing. Jesus said to him, "Your faith has made you well." Luke 17:19. Gratitude doesn't just recognize the miracle, it unlocks the fullness of God's blessing.